What's up guys, KalipezTech here, coming back at you with another video. Today, we're going to be seeing if the Samsung Galaxy A02s is good for everyday mobile gaming. We're going to be demonstrating a few games from Fruit Ninja to Angry Birds and Candy Crush and that sort of thing to see how well they actually perform on this phone. So let's get started. The first game we're going to try out is Temple Run, definitely one of the classics. It loaded up decently well. Let's see. This game is a little bit more graphics intensive than a lot of others, and everything looks to be running pretty decently. The interesting thing about Temple Run is that you not only have to interact with the screen in order to play the game, but you also have to tilt the phone around. And right now, this phone is responding really well to movement. Whenever I do something, it'll actually react. There's not a ton of complex animation, and it's not lagging or anything like that. And given this phone's processing power, I really was expecting it to, but it actually is running pretty well. At the end of the day, this is a pretty simple game. There are not really any super complex 3D graphics or anything like that, like you would see in a game like PUBG or Fortnite. But the game does have its fair share of animation, and overall, no pun intended, but Temple Run runs pretty well on this phone. The next game we're gonna try out is Angry Birds 2. I honestly don't know what happened to Angry Birds 1. I couldn't find it. I feel like it's just condensed into the same thing, but whatever. We're gonna play it. You can't really talk about mobile gaming without at least looking at Angry Birds a little bit. So let's see if it actually works on this phone. My only concern about Angry Birds on this phone is how much random stuff just happens on the screen. When you're blowing up a bunch of structures with pigs in them, you're bound to have a little bit of lag or something like that, right? And it'll be especially interesting to see what happens on this phone, because this phone is a pretty entry-level phone that doesn't have a ton of processing power, but at the same time, it has a lot more RAM than you would expect from an entry-level phone. With 4 gigabytes of RAM, it's really not bad, so it could go either way, but we're gonna see. So that was pretty decent. I did see just a tiny bit of lag right when the bird hit the structure, but that's to be expected. I've even seen it do that on iPhones and Samsung Galaxy S series, so it's really not that much of a surprise. We're on the loading screen again. We'll see how long it actually takes to load. Looks like it froze up there for a second, but it's not too bad. So now that we're into the real gameplay and the tutorial is done, we're gonna see exactly how well this game runs on this phone. So far it's going really well, but sometimes the tutorial has a little bit less lag and stuff like that than the actual gameplay itself. So we're gonna see. Everything looks pretty good. There was just a tiny bit of lag that's barely noticeable if you're not looking for it. Everything looks really smooth. This is a really basic game, so keep that in mind. And the size of the display too makes this a lot better. Having a 6.5-inch display, you're definitely gonna be able to see things really clearly. Especially in a game like Angry Birds, you're gonna wanna see the details more close up. So overall, Angry Birds worked really well on this phone. There was absolutely no lag, no trouble at all. There are probably a few milliseconds where something ran slightly slower, but unless you're specifically looking for lag, you wouldn't even notice. Angry Birds is a really basic game on one hand, but on the other hand, there's a ton of animation. I mean, back in the day when this game was still pretty new, I remember it crashing an entire computer before. So seeing it run completely flawlessly on this phone was actually really impressive. The next thing we're gonna try out is Fruit Ninja. Now, the reason I chose this game is because in the gameplay, you actually have to interact with the screen a lot, and it not only has a bunch of animation too, but it really relies on you swiping your finger across the screen. So we're gonna see if the swiping motions actually respond fast enough to make the gameplay good. It's loading relatively fast as expected. All right, we've gotten past all the login screens and now we're gonna test out the gameplay itself. I did mute the music just for the sake of this video, but in case you're wondering, the setting is here and the music does work fine. That was a little questionable. That animation was slightly slow. I made sure to hit the bomb just to show you what that animation looks like, and there was nothing wrong with it. The only time you really see any type of lag is when you're switching screens, but even then, it's barely noticeable. Let's see. There was a little bit of lag. And there's that again, but it doesn't really do that in the gameplay. It's really interacting super easy with the screen. It's really responsive when it comes to this type of motion. I really have no complaints about how it operates. The only lag that I've seen so far is pretty insignificant because it's in parts where it doesn't really matter. Even when there's a ton of stuff on the screen, it still does really well. Overall, the quality of the gameplay when it comes to Fruit Ninja on this phone is pretty much perfect. I only saw lag in a couple different spots, and it wasn't even in the actual gameplay, it was really just loading things. And that's pretty normal for any game on most phones. Even if you're using a Samsung Galaxy S21 Ultra or something, it still might freeze up every now and then. So even though this phone doesn't have the strongest processor or the best display or anything like that, it still runs these really basic games super easily. Now finally, the last thing we're gonna try out is Candy Crush. Now the reason I chose this game is because despite how simple it is, there's so much animation. I've seen it crash multiple high-end devices before, so we're gonna see how well it runs on this phone. We're on the loading screen now, of course. We'll see how long it takes to pull everything up. So far, so good. All the animation is playing really smoothly. There's really no problem. Even though the display is only a 720p PLS LCD display, it still does run pretty well, and it doesn't look bad either. So overall, from what I've seen, the Samsung Galaxy A02s runs Candy Crush pretty much flawlessly. So in conclusion, is the Samsung Galaxy A02s good for basic mobile gaming? I would definitely say so. In fact, this demonstration has changed my opinion quite a bit on what this phone can handle, even though the processing power of this phone is what you would expect from a super entry-level phone, and it doesn't have the best display or even the biggest. It's still able to handle these more basic mobile games with decently good graphics too, really well, without lagging or anything at all, even through all the animation and stuff, which on some of these games, I was honestly expecting it to have a lot more trouble, but it didn't have any trouble at all, so I am surprised. And with that, I would say if you are into playing these more basic mobile games on your phone, and that's a feature that's important to you, then the Samsung Galaxy A02s is going to be a pretty good option for that. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, be sure to leave a thumbs up and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.